Hello, everyone. Welcome in. If you are just joining us, hello. I hope you're having a great evening. Today's topic is kind of a big one, depending on your childhood, depending on your family background. But it's also a very human one. I think most, if not all of us, have some sort of family, be it blood related or found family-esque or friends that we consider family. So, considering the holidays are coming up, fast approaching. That a lot of us are probably going to be dealing more with going home, spending time with family, general get-togethers, holiday-esque things if we didn't already the month prior, depending on where you're from. So, if your family has ever brought out parts of you that you thought you've outgrown, you are not alone. So we're here and we're going to discuss it, and I'll share what I have learned. Hopefully you share what you have learned, and we're learning together. So, as I said, tonight we're discussing why family sometimes brings out the worst in us. Old patterns, stress, even old like family type roles. And how we could treat ourselves more gently when that happens. Sorry, I'm kind of a little stressed myself today, to be real. But we're doing it. We're here. We're enjoying our evening with you. Even if you're watching this after the live, hey, how you doing? Like the video and comment and be like, hey girl, how you doing? Love the chit chat. It really helps not only the channel, what we're doing here, it helps the algorithm pick that up, but it helps me as a real human being just be like, oh God, someone's watching. And I say that in all love and care, as I think even without anybody watching, I would still be very much interested in discussing my ideas, my thoughts, putting this all out there into the abyss and being a hello, who's there? So, like I said, tonight we're talking about why family sometimes bring out the worst in us, be it our old patterns or stress, way of thinking, and how we can hold ourselves more gently and compassionately when we get triggered like that. So if your family brings out the worst in you, we're here. We're not alone in it. So first and foremost, how is everyone doing? Just a warm up, feeling how everybody in the chat is feeling. Even if you're not, like I said, even if you're not watching live, put in the comments, how was your week? Was it good, bad? Did some rough stuff happen? Did some good stuff happen? For me personally, not a bad week, relatively okay. But I have noticed the stress is getting to me. Not only the holiday stress, gift giving, doing all that stuff, money, everything is stacking on a little bit there. Doing the YouTube thing, making sure I respond well on like Instagram. Follow me on Instagram, Angela and then some, as well as on the YouTube community post, on editing. FYI, may be looking for an editor. So if you're interested, you can drop a comment. And then maybe we could start something. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how that works, but it's me right now. So yeah. So if you're watching this live currently or later on, feel free to respond either way. But do you feel you act differently around your family than you do in regular life? Now, for me personally, I noticed this when I was in my teens, when I was much younger, that it was more easy for me to talk to people in my family than obviously people that weren't in my family. Now, I personally grew up with social anxiety, like not a little bit. It was the extreme end of nope, nobody's getting in here, I'm not talking. So growing up like that, it was very clear that in public settings I was not comfortable. I wasn't gonna connect with people. It was just not happening. As the years progressed, I've gotten more comfortable in public settings, more so out of responsibility to my now daughter. She is in elementary school, so there's a certain level of decorum with other parents that I definitely try to be the friendly face, the smiling face, make acquaintances with other fellow children havers, just so my daughter when times come up for like birthday parties and things like that, I am a familiar enough face. She is also a familiar enough face, and then like invites and things like that. So pretty much I'm more trying to not be socially anxious on her behalf, you know, be normal. But yeah, so do you act differently around family than you do in regular life? Have you noticed any way you react? Maybe for you, your reaction is you're much more quiet in your family life or around your family than you are with friends or other people in your age group. That could definitely be a thing. I've seen that in my own personal family where you kind of figure out who's genuinely just quiet or more on the quiet side and who's actually like, no, I'm just not talking to anybody here. I'm going to go over there into my room and start talking to the people online or my friends and things like that. So something I've noticed. Let me know in the chat if you've noticed you act differently around family compared to friends, work, or in your everyday regular life. So one of the biggest reasons family may bring out the worst in us or old patterns is spending time with them. Family remembers and sometimes reinforces who we used to be. So maybe you were very shy growing up, and then that was something your family always remembered you as, like, oh, she doesn't talk much, she's shy, she doesn't talk much, whatever. But then you get in your 20s or your 30s or even maybe even your 40s, and they still, maybe when you're with them in public, they take the lead, like be it a mother, a father, or a sister, brother. They may be like, oh no, because you're shy, you don't want to talk. But even though you're like, I'm fine, I'm an adult. There's certain patterns that may be in individual relationships that may be hard to break out of. So within that, some family systems and how family has decided to work may freeze us into those same childhood roles. Particularly, maybe if you have a loved one who maybe doesn't fully see you as an adult. Now that I'm in my 30s and there are people in my family younger than me, I definitely have kind of seen that in like the early 20-somethings of our family where they are adults, but at the same time, I'm well aware of how not adult they are and how it's totally okay because if they live with family members still and things like that, I'm like, yeah, you take your time, grow at your own pace. But it's definitely something you notice that even I may notice that I may put them in a child role in my mind and unintentionally so, even though they're very much an adult. Now, some of them who are very much an adult, sometimes they do act very childlike still in some regards. So it's a weird balance as someone now who's becoming a bit older to balance when they are seen as a child where it is something that they may not know how to handle or when it's something that they need to know how to handle this on their own. So it's definitely a balancing act. And I can see that from, say, parents or older siblings, older cousins, probably from their perspective, their point of view of me, even though now in my 30s, there are still certain things that I may not know of that they're like, oh, she doesn't know this, so let me help her out. Or she should know this. So it's very interesting to see the family dynamics grow and change as I also grow and change. And if you've experienced that, let me know in the comments and in the chat. And then when we speak of the holidays, obviously a lot of us during the holidays are a little stressed. Like I said, I'm a little stressed. So anybody under stress, be it with your family, be it with friends, be it alone with yourself, you tend, I think there's a metaphor for it where when you're breaking habits or trying to add new habits, it's like a rubber band where it can only stretch so far and at a certain point it will snap back. Now, not necessarily bad because I guess that still kind of stretches the rubber band. There may be a better metaphor for this, but when it comes to boundaries and habits and things like that, when you are literally going to a family home or going to spend time with family members that saw you grow up, maybe at your worst times, or when some habits you had were terrible, it's really hard to not revert back to those old roles, especially if family is readily accepting you to revert back to those old roles. So yeah. I didn't realize how stressed I actually was this this week. I still feel fine. But let me know in the chat. Are you feeling stressed this week? Is it building? Is the holidays, are they coming? Are you feeling it? So yeah, holidays definitely amplify everything, including stress, including what we talked last week about emotional salience, about putting things matter more because we put emotional weight on them. So you add that in, and then the other expectations of what the holidays should be like, or what you want them to feel like, and yeah, it can get pretty intense. So yeah, when speaking about family members and things not being exactly how you things actually reverting back to old childhood patterns or things like that. It's kind of like you may have grown, but the room you enter hasn't. It's like literally, it could literally be like stepping into a childhood room that has stayed the same. So you're expected to fill certain roles and expectations, right? So then when it comes to like childhood trauma, be it capital T trauma, like the big stuff, or small t trauma, where it's like things that definitely still leave a mark mentally, emotionally, and stuff like that. I lost my train of thought. Your body will still react in that way. So, like the nervous system, all that still holds on. I think that goes back to whether the body keeps the score. Even if it's not severe trauma like PTSD, there are certain things your body still holds on to. I can see that in the way maybe if you grew up more emotionally withdrawing from people in your family, not speaking your opinions, not speaking your truth, keeping that stuff to yourself. That even though maybe in your personal life, outside of your family or work life, you are more outspoken, maybe that's even a trait that is greatly appreciated, where they want you to speak out, they want you to speak publicly. But when you return home, depending on how you are viewed and depending on how people still treat you and try to revert you back to that old role, you may feel yourself withdrawing or trying to be quiet or trying to be not seen. I think for me personally, I realized while I was studying for this live and going through like family systems and childhood trauma stuff, I realized that I have a bit of a little childhood trauma of wanting to be unseen or not seen, in the sense that when I grew up, I was greatly not encouraged, but I think I was definitely much more on the quiet side growing up. And that was never a negative. Like no one ever encouraged me like, hey, speak up, or what do you think? It was always like, yes. I think it maybe comes from my father. I remember my sister and I, who were closer in age, growing up, going to church and things. We were quiet. We would talk quite lowly or quietly to each other. And it was kind of like a positive. I think we were given praise for being so quiet, unassuming, respectful, seemingly. And as I got older in my teen years, I kept that up because of the social anxiety, as well as like I was never ever praised for speaking up or wanting my opinion to be heard. So it was kind of still seeing like, you don't need to notice me back here. Don't pay attention to me. I'm good. But as now as an adult, grown woman, in a healthy marriage and relationship, one, I got kind of tired of not voicing my opinion. Like at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I need to say something. But it also became like more of a need. Like a part of me was like, hey, maybe you always were the person who was opinionated. Maybe you always were the person who had things of value to contribute, but you never saw that in yourself. And I think that goes into, I'm getting a little bit off topic of my prompts and what I'm supposed to be talking about here, but this is what I was studying these past few days. There was a thing that I think is very much something that needs to come to the forefront of a lot of people, is that depending on how we grew up, even, big T trauma or little t trauma, we held some guilt or shame. And there is a difference between guilt or shame. It was described in some of the videos I watched, which I will link in the comments for anybody interested. Guilt is when you do something wrong or bad. You may feel guilty, you'll feel bad, but you need to take the responsibility and the steps to amend it, right? Like these are things you can do, like it's verbally apologizing. Physically, let's say you broke something, fixing it, go buying a new one, once again, apologizing, and, fixing the relationship with whoever you may have hurt, right? But shame is often something that is internalized, meaning a lot of people tie guilt and shame together, but they're two very different things. Shame is an internalized feeling, meaning, let's say you cheat on your partner. This is a big one. But instead of being like guilty in the sense of saying like, you may feel guilty and shame, mind you. Instead of thinking, okay, why did I do that? I need to take responsibility and understand why I did that. I need to apologize to my partner. I need to make amends with my partner. And we need to communicate so we can preserve the relationship. Maybe we're going to have to go to therapy, kind of talk it out and all that good stuff. Shame is like, say, instead of talking it out, you go get in your car, you go drive off, you're thinking about it and you're thinking, I'm a piece of crap. I do this all the time. I don't deserve to be loved. And then that goes into, I think, family dynamics of depending on how you were raised, there can be an internalized shame. And that's something that is detrimental because obviously I think we've all experienced this with people where instead of being like taking responsibility for their actions and trying to work through it and preserve the relationship they have, they may spiral into the shame, depression, and be thinking like they don't deserve love. They do this all the time, that they're the problem. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but the point still stands. I felt like knowing the difference between guilt and shame is like an amazing thing to grasp and understand. Let me know in the comments if you also agree. Danielle stated, I too lived most of my life in stealth mode. Yeah. So I think part of that, going back to my childhood, where being quiet, being not seen, not even heard, was even unintentionally such a positive thing that there was a shame for me attached with being seen, being heard. You know, like I was making a ruckus. I'm giving my opinion. Oh, someone's disagreeing with me. Oh, I'm the problem. But part of growing and I guess becoming who I should have always been is knowing that it's not shame. It's not shameful to be opinionated, especially when you do so respectfully as well as not informally, well informed and respectfully. So yeah, so that's something that I am learning, that it's not. I don't know. I wanted to say like I am not shy. Now I do have social anxiety. Like there are some chemicals in my brain that aren't doing what they should be doing. That's something I have to like either accept or not really learn to deal with, but learn to process and learn how we tweak those into the better motion of being like, oh no, we're good. And I think part of this communicating with you all, even though we're not in person, hi, how you doing? That this is part of that process for me. So let's get back to the main story. Although I felt like learning about guilt and shame was very useful. And I hope you did too. Let me know in the chat if that was something, a little nugget of Angela distilled wisdom that you're like, helpful, tasty. That's usually what I think of when I think of good thoughts, that when I watch or read something that kind of hits, I guess it's like an emotional trigger or resonates with me, I'm like, oh, I think of it as it was tasty. It was a delicious thought, or like, oh, that's nice. So that's just another Angela in my head thing. Let me know if you do something similar. So when it comes to your family, chat, maybe you may be aware of this, or maybe just as we're speaking of this, you may become aware of it. Is there a certain role that you play in your family? There's ones like the helper, the quiet one, the peacekeeper, maybe the people pleaser, the overachiever or trying to do everything. I personally was the quiet one, and I think a lot of times with my roles, now on the reflection of it, I went on a trip with my sister. I may have talked about this months ago, and she mentioned to me that she has to be like kind of like hyper vigilant because she always feels like I'm not aware of my surroundings when we're together. And I think that is actually one of the roles I got used to taking, and I apologize about that very much. That growing up, she had to be hyper vigilant and let me pretty much be more childlike and enjoy myself, while she had to be on guard to make sure, no one came and tried to, kidnap me. But also there was no danger and things like that. So she had to take on more of the protective role, and I got to be more, I guess, if you want to make it seem like a nicer term, the emotional center, the levity, I'm making jokes, I'm just walking doing my thing, usually making jokes. This is the sister that I'm much more close to, so I was more willing to, talk to her regularly. So I think in my family, I tend to either, when I was growing up, quiet, I threw tantrums as a child. That was one too. But then as I got older, I tended to be the one who, was it levity or humor in the situation? I make jokes. There's a thing that my husband noticed, as my mother always talks to me sometimes, and she always says my name in an exasperated tone because I tend to not lie. I'm making a joke, but sometimes when I make the joke, it's dry sarcasm, the dry wit. Um, and so when she's like, "Did you really do that or something?" I'm like, "No." Like, I made the grandiose stories of like, "Oh, yeah," and then blah blah blah. Like that's what I was thinking, but I didn't actually say something to the person. I was like, "No, no, no, we'll be cool." But maybe as I'm growing, it's one of those things to learn to be like, maybe I should say something. Um, right now, I'm thinking of my doctor's office. To be honest, you know, they hold the keys to a lot of things, so sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. But I know the whole thing is like it's your health, your well-being, so you should speak up, and I have. I gotten better at it, but then usually, yeah, some doctors aren't good doctors where it's like, okay, you're not. It's 1994 for you. So a lot of times I'm just like, they're not up on the latest, so I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm listening. Maybe you've experienced that too. But like I said, chat, willing to share. Let me know, what role do you realize that you've played in your family? Put it in the chat if you're interested in contributing like that. And I think, yeah, since I've gotten older and I've realized the difference, as like, like I said, now there are 20 somethings and teenagers in my family. So I'm no longer like the youngest generation. I'm more like the middle ground, or maybe blurring into middle/older generation. Wild. But yeah, that depending on who you are experiencing or their relationship to you, like with my older sisters or my mother, they may still see that 15-year-old me. And I'm lovely, childhood wonder is still in my eyes, I guess. But for those who are younger in my family, they may see me as like now, or like maybe 20 something year old me, like in their mindset. So it's very interesting to think of how others in your family and your family dynamics may be viewing you from a completely different lens than how you may view yourself. So going into that, I think that goes into like memory, family relationships more, and the patterns depending on where exactly you are in your family. Yeah, I think, just pondering. But I think, yeah, when it comes to like certain family dynamics, I don't really have, I guess maybe I mentioned with my father, we're not super close, but I think I still respond in the shutdown way with him. I think my husband had discussed this with me as well, that at least so I knew I wasn't alone in the way I felt about the conversations we've had. And it feels like he was talking at me, not with me. And my husband himself has broached this subject with me on his own accord, and he was trying to figure out the wording, and then I said, he's talking at you, not with you, and he was like, yes. So it's learning that it's not a deficit on your end, depending on the conversation, depending on the family member. Now, for me, that probably means having to, when I do have to interact with my father, broach the subject more, getting it to be a reciprocal relationship and conversation. Being the sly dog I am, I'm going to have to psychologize him. That's not really a word, but whatever. Where I'm going to have to slip in the tones or the phrases to get him to see this as, a good tennis match, not a game of handball. So yeah. So let me know in the chat if any of you have experienced that, where someone has talked at you instead of with you, and if you've seen it as a pattern in your relationships, or maybe a particular family member or something like that. I think that's really interesting to take note and notice, especially if you're the party that notices. It's kind of your responsibility then to start tweaking it, start changing it a bit, if you want to preserve that relationship. Ooh, just talking a lot. I'm gonna type something in the chat. Yes, I have to look when I type because I am not that great at typing, especially when all this is, you don't see it, but I see it. It's not all centered. I'm in the best way for the camera, and this is for you. And I just was like, I will figure it out. So your brain associates certain like tones, phrases, or family dynamics with past experiences. I think we all kind of know this, that your past kind of reflects your future and your present, right? Like if you don't acknowledge Rafiki and Lion King, if you don't acknowledge it, he said something along that. If you don't acknowledge the past, I think when he hit Simba on the head, if you don't acknowledge your past, you're just going to repeat it or something. Because I think when he swung his staff and hit Simba, and he was like, ow, and then he swung it again, but he ducked, and he's like, he learned and he remembered. So I think that's part of learning from your past and acknowledging it. Yeah. So yeah, I think right now when I just talked to my dad and him talking at me and said with me, but now it's kind of like in the ball's in my court to make sure within my own availability or my own willingness to have the conversation between us be more reciprocal. That's part of learning from your past. It's like analyzing those relationships, taking a minute or two to kind of reflect on, maybe if you don't want to start with further out of what relationships may be wrong or bad, depending how you view that, it starts with the relationships that are important to you. If you value your relationship with your mom, maybe think about your mom right now and think about some of your past or recent experiences, like conversations you've had, maybe even one from your childhood that kind of stands out, or your teen years. And then you could kind of reflect on any issues, stress, or things that have come up in that regard. So you can kind of be like, we always get friction when we talk about this. Now, do you always have to talk about that? No, you can set your own boundary and say like, I just won't ever, I just won't bring that up with her. Or you can kind of be like, why does that cause the friction? But the first step obviously is noticing the problem. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. And then I think holidays and stress in general, you have less like emotional bandwidth to deal with things. So if you're going to like spend time with family, that there could already be some friction or tension depending on what conversations may cause that. You could already be showing up stressed. They can already be showing up stressed because they could be going through things that they're not discussing with you, but is holiday related. It could be grief related. It can be expectations related. It can be money or gift related. All that stuff. Work related. We don't know what other people are going through unless we ask. But even then, they have every right to just be like, no, I'm not going to tell you. But yes, so depending on the environment, there's going to be triggers. Considerably if there's alcohol in your family, if there are other things besides alcohol readily available in your family gatherings and get-togethers, that could already kind of set things up for some tension to arise or some pushing of boundaries and things like that. So I think in that regard, it's very good to be aware of your own boundaries, what you're okay with talking about, what, with who. Danielle says, I imagine the relationship with ourselves is crucial to repair and helpful with the external relationship. Yes. When you identify a lot of things within yourself that maybe you don't like, maybe you do like, things you want to change, it becomes, I think, easier to identify those on the outside. Like loving yourself, speaking kind words to yourself, and all that good stuff. I think then it becomes much easier to acknowledge and notice the things in others that you love about them. And that you may be more freely able to say, I love that about you, or like, that's great. And I think, I think that's really great to, it helps your relationship with yourself. I think I've said this before in some aspect, is you're your own best friend. You're going to be with yourself for quite a while, depending on your life's journey. So you should be friends, best friends even. Just, yeah. So yeah, thank you, Neil. That was very helpful. So I think when it came to my father and thinking how I would just more so let him talk and just be like, not really say anything. I think that goes into like the science aspect of it, of when your brain recognizes like a familiar emotional pattern, it reacts in a similar way that you may have learned to react in childhood or in your adolescence or in recent adulthood. So Yeah, I think we just had a breakthrough chat. I just figured out some of my own issues with my father. Awesome. Go team. Thank you for being there for me. So yeah. So what's something for you is like triggering, like maybe a way someone says something, like a tone or a phrase, or maybe even a specific situation that brings an old reaction in you, like some part of you that you are trying to change or modify, fix perhaps. Um, I did just have a thought of what one was. I don't know anymore. I think I've always kind of been okay with confrontation when it has occurred. Um, okay. Thank you, Neil. Anytime, glad to be here. So, all right, someone said someone's specific name triggers them. So, if they as a person or what act, if you're trying to coat, if there's a specific family member who triggers you, you have to identify what the behavior is, what they say, or how they say it is triggering you. Because even if it is they trigger you, there could be like trauma behind that. There could be like a whole, not just one or two things, but like a trickle of like many little things. So it's helpful to identify what those are. Daniel says, I like being a trigger. Okay, so yeah, when you yourself have grown a lot, sometimes you like to see that growth in others, and sometimes from your own experience, you know that growth can be uncomfortable, can be painful at times. So saying something that you know may trigger someone else purposefully to trigger the growth, especially if you're doing it out of love or wisdom or hopefully helping them grow positively, that it's something to be said. Hopefully people aren't just going around triggering people purposefully, but that is also a way with it. Immersion therapy, like just keep coming at somebody until they react the appropriate way, and not appropriate in the same in the way of policing their behavior, but appropriate in the way of them finally speaking their piece or finally figuring out what it is that's bothering them about this. So yeah. I think there was, when I was dating my now husband, I've always had this, I don't think it was a problem, but okay, backstory time. Social anxiety. Obviously, with social anxiety, it's not just mental, it can actually be physical symptoms like getting sweaty, feeling nauseous, feeling like you have to go to the bathroom, right? We know this. So a lot of the times, one of my symptoms was feeling like I had to go to the bathroom, and like number two, so like it was serious. So one of the things that would leave my social anxiety, like my anxiety about that, would making sure I was dehydrated, like I didn't drink any water, so no, I don't need to go, and I didn't eat anything, so no, I don't need to go. So that was something I knew for sure to like tell my mind, like we can breathe through this, we're fine, we don't have anything in there right now, we're cool. It wasn't until I started dating my first boyfriend, still a friend of mine, so it's great, that I had to get comfortable eating around someone freely, meaning, girl, you are hungry, you are dating this person like 6 months plus, you are hanging out for hours on end, you need to eat, right? Um, so there was that, but then one of the things was so I was always slightly uncomfortable eating around other people because bathrooms happen, right? Bathroom break time, didn't want to be dealing with that. And then so meeting family of like boyfriends and things like that was uncomfortable. Didn't like it because it it wasn't until much later in my life I realized how much I enjoy food in the sense of actual tasting it, relaxing when I'm eating it. I'm not one to be like, let me just eat this real quick in the car. I will just not eat. I'm not going to eat in the car like that unless it is extreme. We got stuff to do, but I need something in my system so I don't pass out later. Um, but with my husband, he made it a point to say something. One of the things that triggered him, just as like an ick or something he didn't like about people, was when they chew and they make the mouth noises, like when you hear somebody chewing, like the lip smacking. And apparently I do that to an extent. He acknowledged it when we first started dating, but he didn't bring it up. He was polite about it because he liked me enough to be like, it's okay, chill, it's okay. um, but then I think at one point in our relationship, he brought it up. And then I said something to him pretty much right then. I was like, okay. But please don't make it a deal breaker here, because it's a big deal for me with someone with social anxiety, where that ties into actually how I physically feel. Like, do I have to go to the bathroom? Am I nauseous? Do I need to go to the bathroom? That I'm comfortable enough to eat around you. If you make the way I eat something I have to be self-conscious about, it's gonna lessen my enjoyment of spending time with you, because obviously you gotta eat. And then also make me more self-conscious, and I will connect that self-consciousness and that negative energy to him. So he pretty much, this was when we were first 4 months, 5 months of dating, and he immediately took the step back and was like, respect, I will not do that. So even to this day, he has brought it up of how I eat and things like that, but more so in the loving way of saying, like, it's just one of my many, I have many lovely things about me, but that's just one of the little things that he's like, if you could change one thing, it'd be how I eat sometimes. So I think that's part of, was it, how something you grew up with can kind of affect you. Like, I technically outgrew that anxiety about like eating in front of others. I think, actually, I know I still prefer, like I said, I prefer not to, because when I eat, I want to actually fully enjoy the meal. I don't know if anybody else around here is like that. Let me know in the chat if you also agree, or will you just scarf down a burrito in the car because you're hungry. But I like to be comfortable. I like to be set up with everything and then just taking my time. So yeah, I don't know the full point of that story was, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the chat if you did. Danielle stated, we were all mirrors triggered by people left and right. Yeah. I think that was something with my first boyfriend, to be honest, he had a family member that I did not care for. Now, this is a closer family member, so someone I seen regularly. I very quickly, I was like 19 or 20, realized what it was. And yes, Danielle, just like you said, a mirror. Usually if someone triggers you, there's something about them that you may not like about yourself that is being reflected back at you. And it was something then that I realized what it was. So I still had no interest in, preserving or having a better relationship with them. We didn't dislike each other. We're more like neutral. Mine was maybe a little neutral negative, because some of her characteristics were a little like unsavory, and I didn't dig it. But they were reflections of some of my more negative attributes that at the time I wasn't ready to actively, like, do the shadow work to figure them out. Now, as a grown woman, I'm past that. Uh, just from having my daughter, growing as a person, everything, I got past that, those triggers. But yeah, so definitely when you notice something about somebody that just gets under your skin, or you don't like them, usually it's a good time to reflect and figure out what exactly it is. Maybe they are unpleasant. Maybe it really is a them issue. That's legitimate. But maybe it could be something that they do that reminds you of something that you do, or something you try to stop yourself from doing, or something you're changing about yourself and that you don't like what you see in that mirror. So yes. I think so. When it comes to holidays and why family sometimes brings out the worst in us, I think there's also, because, like I was going into briefly, depending on if there's alcohol or other things available and you're spending time with family, some people can't handle that. So sometimes stress or their own stress can get the better of them. So it's learning your boundaries, learning who you're willing to talk with. And like, if you have to keep it superficial, it sucks. I know I don't like superficial relationships, nor the quick chit chat, but I guess if you want to preserve the relationship, just be like, I will go talk to so and so. I'll just say, how are you doing? Oh, how's work? Oh, that's good. Give them a hug, and then just float or slowly make your way elsewhere. So that's something to do, if, as long as you do want to preserve the relationship. I think most people, well, yeah, most people aren't looking to start fights with people. That's some sociopath, psychopath, or hurt person behavior. So in that regard, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that one. Like I said, I totally got off track of my little outline and notes here. I do keep some notes, but I'm not there. Um, yeah. let me know in the chat if anything's on your mind right now, even if it's something slightly unrelated or funny or just you're having a good time. Let me know. I'm all ears right now. I'm just trying to find an area in my notes to kind of jump back into the conversation. The combo's too good. Too good. Yeah. So when it comes to family members that may cause us to be triggered or stressed, how do we handle when an old pattern like that gets activated? That has to do, I think, a lot with your own, with it, inner child healing and shadow work stuff. And I know it's called healing and it's called work. There's things that, require the energy to do them. So that's a whole nother layer of if you are willing to do that, but it's for yourself. So, be your own best friend. Do literally one question at a time. It doesn't matter if you're doing, like, you buy a shadow work workbook or inner child healing workbook and you answer one prompt or one question, you're working on it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think the point is, a lot of things in life, we look at it as how long it's going to take to get there. But the point is, the time is going to pass either way. So even if it takes you, 3 months to do what should have took you 2 days in a workbook, so what? You did the thing. It's your life. It's your journey. It could take as long or as quickly as you need it to. And the time's going to pass either way. So here are some gentle tools. So if you would like to stay more grounded in case you get activated by old patterns or triggers and stuff. One of them is the micro pause. It sounds too simple, but it really is the deep breath and the pause. There is when you're spiraling, when you're feeling anxious, things like that. You don't necessarily, I think last week I recommended, taking a break in the bathroom if you need to. But this is one of those, literally, I'm going to act like this mic is a cup. And maybe you walk over to the kitchen and you're like, I am feeling it. So take a breath, pick up the cup, breathe out, take the drink, maybe do another breath, and then put it down. You did it. That is enough of a reset for your nervous system and your mind to stop the spiral, to at least block, or not necessarily block, but get the stress train to go divert into another area. And it may also give you times that if it was someone particularly triggering you or a conversation, you now can maneuver out of it. So it's also about learning your boundaries, what you're about, the things that do trigger you, the things. And maybe if you're not even comfortable with the word trigger because you're I don't know what triggers me, maybe you are more familiar with how you feel. So if you're familiar more with I don't like being stressed out. So when you're having a good time with family and then they bring a family member or somebody brings up something that you feel the stress response, you can breathe right there. You can choose to react or, take it back and go be I'm going to go get something from the kitchen. And then that's when you take that moment. And then you can choose to go back into that conversation, which that is your, I think, prerogative. I don't know. That is your responsibility if you so choose to go back into that, or you can maneuver your way somewhere else. And then, so the micro pauses are something you could definitely do. Another one, I've seen a sibling of mine do this, where choose the role you're not going to be taking on. I think we talked about this before in previous lives about other people giving you a hat. Or maybe someone wanted you to be the peacekeeper in your family. So they gave you this coat and you're this isn't my coat, but I take it because they gave it to me. And then they start adding other things and things like that. So it's acknowledging what is actually you and what was pushed or thrust upon you. And one of the things when I was studying for this, I connected this to one of my siblings. They have decided that they will no longer be people pleasing, which has displeased me, but it's fine. I understand. One of the things that I didn't realize was a trigger for them or an automatic people pleasing behavior is when I would always ask them hey, can you go throw this away for me? Or can you give me a cup of water? Things like that. When they're no, you are responsible for you. I'm trying to eat this. I'm not going to put down my food to go get you water, so stuff like that. Although it's kind of displeasing, but it's understandable. They have decided to put their own wants and needs, or at least their needs, in front of not in front of others, but before others, realizing that their needs don't go behind everybody else's. And I think that's a healthy and good thing to learn and to acknowledge about yourself, and also to actively practice, especially when you're in those moments with family, especially down around the holidays when there is stress and things like that, to actively acknowledge what your role was or is sometimes. And if you are not comfortable with that role, to be aware of what are some of the expectations of that role and previous experiences in that role. So when it happens, you know, to be like, no, or to like smooth it over, or to, to avoid it or something like that. Or to speak your piece and just say like, nope, I'm not doing that for you. I think you can do it yourself. And rude, but truthful. So that's one of the ways, is at least acknowledging the role that you had in your family before or in the past, whatever. And then deciding those behaviors are not the behaviors you're going to do this year. And don't put too much expectation or stress on yourself. Progress over perfection. So even if 1 out of the 3 times is when you actually, stood by your conviction, was like, okay, I did my need first. I was eating pie and I did not put my pie down. I was clearly eating something I wanted and I didn't get them water, or I didn't go, go do something for somebody else when they were very much capable of doing it. And even if the other 2 times you did, it's okay. It's progress over perfection. Part of it is acknowledging the problem or the issue or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, and keep practicing. Practice, 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 even if it displeases your family. Another way is, I think, the normal was like grounding, being in the present. There are different ways to do this, where you think it's like smell something, you see something, you feel something, that to ground you when you're kind of like tense or stressed out. But there's also things like you can also like the positive self-talk type of thing. I don't know what it's called. It eludes me right now, but it is a way of, when you handle stress, you look at something in the room, identify what it is, and it's like you smell something, like don't like go find these things. It's usually like you breathe in, you see what, feel, you smell what you smell. If you can acknowledge a scent, cool. You touch something like a fabric or a table, feel the sensation. So that's a way to ground you in the present moment. So instead of retreating into your mind or into some past experience, or even some future anxiety experience that you're trying to like maneuver around, be present. That's one of the ways, is smells, taste. I guess you can take a bite of something, what you see, name what you actually see in that moment, and then actually touch something. I don't remember what this is called, but then you can also do the positive self-talk of being like, you're an adult now, you are capable, you can do hard things. Those mantras can actually really be helpful for somebody in those moments. I myself have used those, where I'm like, I can do this. And then afterwards, one of the things I've learned too is also to celebrate your wins. Maybe even just mentally, or maybe you decide, excuse me, and you just go to the bathroom real quick and you're like, yeah, I did it. Look at yourself in the mirror and be like, you can do hard things, go you. And I think that's why one of the things I tend to do on stream when we're playing games, as well as here, I'm like, high five, go team, is like that sense of accomplishment, to actually bask in the gratitude and in the enjoyment of actually like doing a hard or difficult thing. I think a lot of us with either people pleasing tendencies, or are used to being unseen, or are, that type of childhood trauma-ish stuff, tend to overlook our own accomplishments, or like if you're an overachiever as well, tend to overlook our own accomplishments just because we're not used to getting praise for them to begin with, and so we expect us to be doing more. So it's always important to take a step back and congratulate yourself. Let your body actually get the dopamine that it needs to actually know that this was a concrete celebratory thing. Yeah. Neil says maybe embodiment. It might have been. I don't know what sentence I needed help finding a better word for, but thank you. It was too long ago for me to remember. And I think another tool is preset boundaries. Like what I think maybe my sibling that is working on this is that they maybe was it one of the internal mantras, things to say is like, I am not responsible for everyone's emotional evening, or I am not responsible for everyone's enjoyment of tonight. Things like that to remind yourself that, was it like, I think there's a saying, in different circumstances, like, not my circus, not my monkeys. Like when you feel the need to interfere or to protect, to round people up, to solve a problem, sometimes you have to take a step back and realize, whoa, wait, this is not my monkeys, not my circus. I don't need to be doing anything here. And I think when people, especially when people are adults, it's their responsibility to take hold of their own life and do what's right by them. Now, obviously, that's if people are like punching or if someone's in danger or something, sometimes other people have to jump in to be like, whoa, 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 what's going on? But other than that, it's kind of like sometimes it is best to let other people handle their business. Within reason, obviously, you have your own discernment and your own family dynamic that you have to take into account, right? So, yeah. So, yeah, I think overall, it's never about blaming your family because everyone has their own story, their own issues, their own childhood, their own past, and things that they've dealt with. But it's understanding them as well as understanding why old versions of ourselves may appear to them or what we may look like to them in their point of view, what they're used to seeing us as, what maybe has changed recently. And then also remembering to meet ourselves with compassion in that regard too, to know that we're not who we used to be. Maybe we changed for the better or worse, but being acknowledging and being aware of that, right? I think even if your family hasn't seen it, you have grown. So that's something if you've been working on habits or boundaries or doing your best, and even your family doesn't see it, it's always great to acknowledge your own self-growth, as in like you are your own best friend. Treat yourself well, congratulate yourself, and keep everything in the perspective of it is a journey and like doing the best you can. So even if other people try to pull you back into the frame of reference they're used to seeing you as, you don't have to oblige to that, and you're allowed to show up as the person you become or you are becoming. Yeah. So let me know, chat. Did anything in this chat? Yeah, I guess in this live resonate with you? And any patterns that you may have recognized within yourself, you can let me know in the actual live chat here and we can discuss it a little bit. Or if you're watching this after the live, feel free to write in the comments if you notice some patterns in your own life, some holiday patterns, some family stress patterns, or just family patterns in general, roles that you've taken on that you realize are an issue and maybe you want to discuss them a little bit, or maybe you just want to add your two cents to the conversation even after if you're watching this later. I'm all ears. I would love your comments. So yeah, anything anybody want to say, chat? I think this was a good one. I enjoyed it. I had some breakthroughs myself, so go team. We did that. Let me know if you had any breakthroughs or if you had any realizations or any part of this that specifically resonated with you or you would like to touch on a little bit more. I think we have a few minutes as we're winding down to discuss those. All right, Danielle says, yes, it was. So awesome. Someone else is enjoying themselves here. I'm glad to hear it. Ooh. So I think we're good, chat. I think as far as I'm aware, I will be here Thursday at 7 p.m. playing Coffee Talk. We're going to be walking through some problems with some people, running a coffee shop. I don't even like coffee. All right, Danielle says she'll rewatch. There's some things she'd like to chew on a bit more. All right, yeah. Chew, tasty thoughts. So like I said, Thursday we'll be live again at 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. This time we'll be playing Coffee Talk, which as far as I know is about running a coffee shop and meeting all the different people that come in, their life stories, issues, problems, things like that. And we'll be making coffee. I don't know how to make coffee. I don't even like coffee, and we're going to find out how that world is. So thank you for spending your evening with me. I greatly enjoyed it, and I'm very thankful. And then remember to be gentle with yourself this holiday season, for sure. And then I'll see you either Thursday or next Tuesday. And if I can click over here real quick, I'll tell you what next Tuesday is going to be. Next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the holiday myth. I want to phrase it a different way. When your life never looked like the movie. So we'll be discussing Christmas movies. So if that's up your alley, yeah, we're going to be discussing Christmas movies. We'll be discussing Christmas movies, shows, and comparing them to real life. So bring your thoughts, bring your childhood, bring your adulthood, and what your lived experiences has been, and how those compare holiday expectation wise from shows, movies. Maybe you brought some Christmas magic from the movies into your everyday life because you're an adult now and you can do that. Or maybe something in your childhood resonated with you where you're like, why didn't my Christmas look like that? So yeah, we're going to discuss that. And like I said, Thursday, 7 p.m., we'll be playing the game Coffee Talk. And then Tuesday at 7 p.m., we'll be discussing holiday expectations and the lens of movies and TV shows. So thank you for spending your time with me today. And I hope you have a great evening. I hope you continue to be kind and compassionate and gentle with yourself. And I'll either see you on Thursday right here, 7 p.m., or Tuesday right here, 7 p.m. Or follow me on Instagram too, at Angela and then some. Bye.